Well, good morning, my blog, Facebook friends and followers. Warmest greetings to you. I pray all is well with you and yours. This morning, as I just come breaking the silence. I call this breaking the silence. And I just want to express one or two, probably three, stuff that has been on my heart for a while. From Doreen, there's a lot has taken place in our country from Doreen to now, and now we have the COVID going on, and we have been going through as a nation, as a people. And this morning, I just want to say to you as Bahamians, the system is broken. Okay, I've said it. The elephant is in the room. We say it among ourselves, but we will never put our face out there to say it. The system is broken, Bahamians. The system is broken. And the only way this system can be altered, change can happen if we as a people really face what is going on, if we really acknowledge what is going on. You know, the scripture says, he that come to God must believe that he is, and that he's a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. The first thing when you come to God, you have to acknowledge that he is God. You can't override that. You can't skip over that. You have to acknowledge. The scripture also says, in all your ways, acknowledge. Here again, we have the word acknowledge. And so we can't get change or have change in our country. Things that are out of place and just ain't working cannot be changed in this country if we don't acknowledge. And when you don't acknowledge something, the possibility of you repeating the wrong is 100% of you repeating the wrong. But even though you have good intentions that you want a different result, you have to correct the wrong. You have to correct what is not working. And I believe in a lot of relationships, it's not working because you're not acknowledging that there is a problem. In marriages, I believe that you're not acknowledging that there is a problem. As long as you don't acknowledge that there is a problem, change will never take place. And I believe that's where we at. You know, as a person that stands in the gap for people, and God placed stuff on my heart to pray, when it comes to the Bahamas and I'm praying for my nation, you know, the Holy Spirit will say to me, you're praying, but you're using prayer as a crutch, because there's some things that has to be addressed, and you coming to me praying and then go there and pretend as if nothing's wrong. For instance, this is what really just stir crazy me, if that's a word. You know, when I look at George Floyd situation, and the past couple days I've been just distraught. I will not lie to you. When I close my eyes and I see that knee on that person's neck, I cannot, I have not watched that whole video. I can't. The humanity in me can't do it. And so when I watch that, and I'm not an American, I've studied in the United States, but I'm not an American. I live in the Bahamas. But when I view that, I'm a black Bahamian. So I can understand the plight of black Americans. We could relate with the George ordeal or death, murder. I'm not going to call it ordeal because I'm trivializing it. It wasn't an ordeal. It was a death. It was a murder. And so when I look at it, the whole premise of that whole thing for me, living in another country, being a black woman in another country, looking at that, and one of the things this morning, I was like, Lord, why am I so disturbed? Why is this thing shaking me to the core? And there's a quote that Martin Luther King stated and said, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And that is what the Lord bring out to me this morning. The reason it disturbs you, the reason that you cry and you feel the pain and everything that everybody in another country is feeling is because injustice. Injustice is a language that everybody knows. Love is a language that everybody knows without having an interpreter. You don't need an interpreter when you see love. You can go anywhere in the world and you can see love when it's being displayed. You don't need to know the language. We know love when we see it. We know hate when we see it. We know injustice when we see it. I don't even need to know the laws of America. I can see injustice in another country. Another country can look here during Hurricane Dorian and what transpired, and a lot of things transpired, and it didn't make us look good as a nation. It didn't make our government look good as a government. And so other countries didn't need to know the laws of the Bahamas. We just knew some things just outright wrong. We have a moral conscience as mankind. A moral conscience is to know right from wrong. We know right from wrong. When God breathed into us the breath of life, he breathed a consciousness of God in him. And he's just. He's right. And so we know when we're doing wrong. We don't need the law to interpret it for us. We don't need a lawyer to stand on our behalf. Our conscience dictates and tell us. Now you can be, whereas you're at a place where you are just morally corrupt, but in the deep part of you where God placed something in you that nothing could take that away, you know when you're doing wrong. And so the thing with George Floyd situation is really injustice. And I began to pick apart placing that situation in the Bahamas. And I've seen so much injustice as I began to pick it apart, and as I began to let the Lord just touch it. You know, he touched it. And a lot of times he touched stuff and we don't want, if we have to address it, we'll do like we don't know. And the Lord has been just taking it through and just telling me, you see why you're kind of disturbed with that? Because it's injustice. And one of the things I really came on this morning to speak out and let my voice be heard. And I want to get to the point with this, because I miss already getting to the point. One of the things that have me really disturbed is, I don't want to go on with it, but the burial that happened a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I guess by now it'll be 2 weeks. I could be wrong. But that burial, the whole scene behind that burial, I'm not going to pick on the various things that happened. What really disturbs me with the burial, a burial is this is my interpretation of a burial. A burial is like a birthday. When you have a birthday, you celebrate. You do grand stuff. A burial is like it's the grandeur of that person's life. They're no longer in the body, but for the family, it's like a send-off. And some people do it in various ways. Some people who people who love the sea, they use a burial and they cremate the person and put it on the sea. That's their way of celebrating. Then some people, they have, in every country, burials are different. But in the Bahamas, burial is unique to Bahamians. And so when you have in a certain country, I studied in America, and we in the Bahamas, the way we do burials is we stay at the gravesite as they submit the body to the ground. When I studied in America, I've had the privilege to go to 1 or 2 funerals, and I was just shocked that they don't stay to the gravesite. They don't even go to the gravesite. And if they do, they don't sing like we sing and do all that we do. And it's a ritual, but it's our culture. And so when you have a certain culture, and our culture with our burial, it's outlandish. We do a lot of stuff that isn't necessary, but you cannot downplay what's important to someone. Because if you go in a culture and that's important to that culture, if you don't feel that's necessary, your feelings ain't important in that. You will be offensive to that culture. And so to me, the offense in the burial, and I'm just going to say it out just how I see it, just how it's being recorded on video and what I saw from the burial, the offense with the burial, and I say this to the authorities, the people who were, the committee that was responsible for the burial, I say it to the leader, our country, the Right Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, I say this to you about the burial. This is the problem with the burial. We desecrated a special celebration for these victims' family. How did we do it? First of all, you held a birthday party for me. Remember, I said a burial is a celebration. You held a celebration for me on with my family bodies. So you say the burial was for my family who bodies were there in the casket. And then you invited me, but I was not near, I wasn't a part of, I wasn't deemed important at the burial. And the thing is that's really disturbing. Those persons that were in that casket at the burial, they meant nothing to the people who were near the casket, who had the privilege of sitting around the tent in that area. The people who they meant the most to were the people who were on the outskirts, or the people who were still in Freeport, who were not aware that the burial was taking place, and the people in Abaco who were all scattered all over the place. This burial was supposed to be, even for those who family bodies wasn't there, the whole thing behind the burial was every family member who lost someone in the hurricane and don't have a body, didn't have the privilege to bury their family member. That burial should have been something that commemorate all of the family members. And what you did, you desecrate a special celebration for these families. And then what made it so sad to me is after the fact, when uproar started, when the family members who were there, because there was a lot who was not there at the time, because of COVID-19, they were somewhere else. They couldn't be in Abaco at the time. So much things about the burial was a desecration to the families. Those bodies didn't mean much to the whole Bahamian society, and that's what a death is. My mom, I lose my mom, and she wasn't special to everybody, but she wasn't just a number to me. So you giving me the honor, you respecting the passing of my loved one when you give me that respect, when you acknowledge that I've lost, and the burial, and not doing it in such a respectful way to the victim's family. You send so much negative messages to the family. And then the granddaughter, the whole thing, you Right Honorable Prime Minister, you were not at the burial. You were not at your position, because this was a national catastrophe. Your position should have been at the burial to let the people know solidarity. I feel your plight. I feel your pain. When we know in the Bahamas to not go to someone's funeral, and you supposed to be significant or close, is an insult. And so for you not to be there, and then not to be there, and you didn't send no word, even if you're not there, send someone in your stead. That wasn't done. Then after the burial went south, you didn't get nationally, because it was a national event. You didn't nationally send your grievances or acknowledge that. And you know what? The committee who is responsible for this burial, if you guys had just come out and say, we sorry, it went wrong, and acknowledge it went wrong, because no doubt you put monies into it, but you lose the importance of the burial. The importance of the burial was about the families, the grieving families. It was not about the casket money, the amount you spent, all of that that you did in that press conference after the burial, what I call damage control, had nothing to address the hurt, the pain, the added grief you inflicted on the families who were there trying to navigate or fight with the police to get near the casket, to understand what's going on. Nothing. These people were not told what the ceremony would have been all about. And then they get there and they can't get to the inner courts, which was where their family members' body should, y'all say it was. And so this whole thing has been very disturbing to me. Very disturbing on so many levels. And Prime Minister, sir, you still haven't addressed the people. You still haven't acknowledged that the blood is oozing out of them. You still haven't acknowledged that that went wrong. As a leader, anything that happens under your government, when it go wrong, as a leader, the people put you there. You are the person that represent your government. So when something go wrong, we don't want a committee to come and do damage control. We need our leader to come there and say, okay, XYZ went wrong, we apologize. Listen to me. Listen to me. Things happen. Mistakes happen. We ain't getting into that. We're getting into the fact of when things go wrong in our country, we don't feel that we have a moral obligation to acknowledge, to address the people that put you in place. Sometimes it feels to me like we are the servants and you are the masters. And this is a broken system. The system is broken. That's what I really want to say to the Bahamian people. The system is broken. And let me tell you something, Bahamians. If we don't acknowledge that it's broken, whether you vote them out in 2022, whoever you put in, if you're not willing to make a change, we got to be willing to make a change. We got to be willing to make a change. It is insanity, insane for us not to address what is wrong and expect to have the right outcome. We complain about each other. We'll call talk shows. We will say a lot, but we will even say stuff, and this is what really is really crazy with me, with my people, Bahamians. We would say behind closed door what our plight, how we feel, and in the same breath, we'll come out of that closed door and we'll get there and we will pretend that you don't have a problem. And that is our problem, Bahamian. We pretend that we don't have a problem. And let me tell you, when you do that, it becomes detriment. Because what happened is the price of silence become expensive. Meaning when you let, and it comes to, how can a police get to the point to put his knee on a neck of a grown man in an open public space where people are watching, where his police colleagues are there supporting him and feel okay with it? You know what happened? When we become desensitized from we had the lockdown, if I am correct, the jogger was killed in the lockdown. You could correct me if I'm wrong. Prior to that, many other mothers and family members were losing family members in lockdown. But until with the jogger, until the people who saw the video, who understood what was going on, until they got tired and started to speak, until they started to speak. And what happened is just it just disturbed a small amount of people. And so those officers with the jogger, or not officers, but those citizens who felt like they were the law to kill the jogger and be okay with it, they got away for a couple months before it got to the media. The media caused it. And when the media said something, it caused the laws and the powers that be to address it, to acknowledge it happened. But then what happened is those citizens who attacked and killed the jogger, they were not arrested and due diligence wasn't done to them like we know it would normally be done to another ethnic group more speedily. And so what happened, because nothing happened in that, here we come to the highest crescendo of injustice when a police colleague now, which is the gentleman pressing his knee on the neck of George Floyd, he feel now justified. He feel now justified because you know what happens? Evil only prevails when good men and good women do nothing and say nothing. You could have all of your discrepancy and your anger and your rage behind closed door. You could be upset about a lot of stuff, but if you never say nothing or do nothing, evil will prevail, injustice will prevail. And so Bahamians, we can't afford to be silent. We can't afford to be silent. You know, I waited during Hurricane Dorian. I waited to see the voices to come out during the time Hurricane Dorian. Persons were misplaced, wasn't being readily attended to. Even now, I look at Freeport. Freeport is still in the hospital is still in a tent. I look at Abaco, people are still not having the necessities and so forth, and we're going into another hurricane season. And the thing is these things that need to be addressed are not being addressed. And really, because it's not me, it's not no one involved with me, and I say me as a Bahamian, as Bahamians, because it's not you. You don't feel the need to say nothing. And then the sad thing about it, Bahamians, is Freeport are going through it. They are the ones living in this. Abaco are the ones living in it. And Freeport, to me, I haven't heard no one come together as one voice. You are experiencing this. You put the powers that be. You put the government. We voted the government in. Whether or not I voted FNM, guess what? Prime Minister Hubert Minnis is my prime minister. And whatever he does affect me and my family. It doesn't matter after the government comes in. It doesn't matter when the prime minister or whoever is the prime minister become prime minister. He is in that office. And that office is the prime minister, which is the leader of the country. So he becomes my leader. And so the same respect I have to give to his office, not because of who he is, I give his office. It's the same respect and the same due diligence he has to do for the people. There's a part he has to play. As a leader, we expect certain things because you're in that office. We expect certain answers because you're in that office. We expect the leader to address national issues and come to us and tell us what's going on, where we're going from here, whatever is the case, because of your office. MPs, senators, we expect answers because of the office. It's not about you. It's nothing personal. That's what it is. We take things too personal in this country. Even now, I'm speaking, and I'm not really even addressing some of the things that I really want to address. There's some people shutting down now because the FNM is their government. And so you can't see truth. You can't come to truth. You blinded from truth because you now taking it personal. It's not personal. It's not personal. It's not. It's not personal. We have done some stuff in this country. We have perpetuate some habits. We have perpetuate some actions. We have done some stuff in this country, and we have turned a blind eye ear. Well, we say deaf ear, but I like to say blind ear. You know, if you have a blind ear, it's really bad. But we have just accepted a lot of stuff, Bahamians. We have. We have to make leadership more accountable. Every leadership in this country has to be more accountable. You have to be more accountable. You have to be more accountable. You know what really I see in this lockdown and the COVID-19, where we had to be informed of what's going on and stuff like that. And one of the things I find so disturbing to me is the press conferences. Why I find it so disturbing? Because to me, I personally feel you're speaking over our heads. You're speaking a language that the layman, which the average Bahamian citizens are layperson. That means we don't understand that level of what you're talking about. You did the budget. The budget, you spoke to you speak to the people in a press conference, and you speak to the financial persons in this country. That's who you explain in the budget to. When you owe to explain the budget in a layman's term to the Bahamian, how does this come down? How would we be affected? How would we gain from what you're saying in this budget? So you're speaking above us, and that's what I find. I find we the governing party comes in. When they do their campaigns, they could come over the hill. After they come into power, and after these MPs come in, we don't see them in the community no more. You could have town meetings, you could have all of these things. You can come in and do as if you're touching with the people, feeling the people's plight when you're doing campaign. But after you come in, if we don't watch you on in the House of Assembly, if we don't turn on the TV, many of us won't see our MPs. For me, my MP, he is in Parliament, and the thing that gets me is when you see them on television, the arrogance is so blinding, and so we need to do better. You come into power, well, I say power belongs to God, but you forget the people. You forget the people. You can't forget the people on the ground that you serve. The people have to feel what you're doing. We have to now feel what this government is doing. We have to now be a recipient of what you're doing. And to be honest, we are not. My husband is a black business owner, small business owner in this country, and that's a whole nother level when it comes to black business owners in this country. The striving black businesses in this country, we all know. My husband is in a position where he sits in meeting with certain people, and you get to hear the language. You get to hear foreigners brag about they don't have to do this, they could just go there. And this time the banks are squeezing you. Right now we have a situation, and I'm going to say it, with our business account. We have our business account at a Bahamian Banking Institute. We support Bahamian. Down to anything is Bahamian, we would go with that before we do anything else with anything foreign. And so all of our accounts have always been in the Bahamian Bank. And during this lockdown, what is so saddened to me, and I am so frustrated and angry with this bank, is that I've been in banking for a short time, and I know the preferred customers, you will shut the bank down to address their issues. I've been in it, and I've seen the small, minute stuff that we have to shut the bank down and have meetings because of preferred customer. And most of the times the preferred customers are lighter skinned. But here it is, during the COVID-19, we had items that the bank needed for us to bring in to upgrade our account, and we've been dealing with this before COVID-19. We had to deal with NIB, and so NIB don't move fast with your stuff, and we've been going back and forth with NIB. And during the COVID-19, we've been dealing with this before the COVID-19. During the COVID-19, during this lockdown, when there's many restrictions, NIB was closed during the whole ordeal. Today is the first day where there's a much more freedom and less restriction. So now certain businesses are open and what's not. And the bank put a freeze on our account because we don't have these items in. And then in the heart of it, when my husband went in to find out, this time this is a business account. So we can pay nothing out. We can't access our money in the lockdown. In the lockdown. And when he goes in and he's frustrated. He's the breadwinner. He has business stuff to deal with. He have to pay payments. He have to operate his business. He need the money, and there's a freeze on the money in our Bahamian bank during the lockdown. When he goes in, the black, and I'm saying black because I'm telling you, in this country, I would watch in certain areas I go in, and I would watch black Bahamians serve white differently. And when they come to you, they are brash, they are insensitive, they want to be hard and carry the policies out with you. And then when they deal with a white Bahamian or a white foreigner, oh, they could be more lenient. But you, they're sticking to, oh, this is what the policies are. And this time he went into the bank, and the gentleman looked him and tell him, we can't do nothing until you bring this in. You can't have access to your account. And then, like I say, my husband is in the position and he's able to sit in certain environment, and you hear investors brag. You hear certain people who know someone will tell you, oh, that don't apply to me. When I go in, I don't have to get that particular document. I ain't paid that in years, or I ain't had that in years. And then, see, this the things that the system is broken. And until we uphold the law, until we do due diligence, until we say, if this is the policy, let's adhere to the policy, and not just say the policy is for this one, and then this one come in and they notice this one don't get to go through all of that, they get a pass. And so when I talk about the injustice in our country and how parallel it is with the George Floyd situation, it's just injustice. We have a lot of that in our country. We have a lot of that in our country. The injustice is strangling in this country. And what it has become, the injustice have become the norm in our country. And it has to change, Bahamians. I'm not looking for the government to change, Bahamian. I'm not looking for the MPs to make this change, Bahamians. It starts with us. And before we can even make change, we have to break the silence. The silence means we acknowledge the system is broken. The silence means we acknowledge something is wrong. The silence, breaking the silence means it ain't working. If you don't acknowledge something, there's no way you can be helped, and there's no way change can come. So we have to break the silence in this country. We have to be able to address it, even if it's someone that we love, even if it's someone we support, even if our government is in position. We have to be able to see truth and own up to it, and see wrong and own up to it, and just tell people, I'm telling you, whomever watching this, whomever in the leadership position in this country and in the powers that be in this country, this is nothing personal. Nothing personal. You know what is personal to me? I have 4 boys. I have 4 young boys. And when they become young men, whatever I allow to exist that I don't give voice to, and demand change, I know one person can't do it. But what I can do is I can sensitize. I can cause people to think. I can cause people to stop, because I am breaking the silence. I am saying something is wrong. Can't you not see it? Are you not experiencing the different injustice, the different things that are wrong? And sometimes injustice really ain't sometimes a particular person, you know. All the things that I'm saying that is wrong in our country is the system. So when another government come in, the system is already broken. They perpetuate a broken system. That's what's wrong in our country. We're perpetuating the broken. After a while, when something is broken and you try fixing it or you try patching it up, you need to throw it away and get something new. We need something new. And it's going to start with us Bahamians. We have to become sick and tired. We have to become tired with the norm. We have to become tired. And so I say today, let's break the silence. Let's break the silence.